Good evening, everybody. Please be seated.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
So, welcome to the extraordinary meeting of full council this evening. I am the Mayor of Rugby, Councillor Simon Ward, and will be chairing the meeting. This meeting is being web streamed to the public through the council's YouTube channel. During the meeting, if you wish to speak, please use the push to talk button on the microphone in front of you. Before we begin the formal agenda, I will ask the Chief Executive to provide details of the evacuation procedure for those present.
Good evening, everybody. There's no fire drill scheduled in the building this evening. If the fire alarm sounds, then please make your way out of the building, down the main staircase and out of the main doors of the Town Hall and congregate at the entrance to Caldecott Park, and an officer of the council will give instructions on when it's safe to return to the building.
Thank you. Are there any apologies, Chief Executive?
Mr. Mayor, I have apologies from Councillors Daly, Caradia, O'Rourke and Parker.
Now on to approve the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council held on the 13th of March and the annual meeting on the 16th of May 2024. I move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council held on the 13th of March 2024 and the annual meeting held on the 16th of May be approved and adopted. Who will second the motion?
I will, Mr. Mayor.
Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. The motion is carried. Next, we move on to declarations of interest. Can I remind members that when they declare interest, they must also declare the general nature of that interest? Are there any declarations under non-pecuniary interests, as defined by the Council's Code of Conduct for Councillors? No. Pecuniary interests, as defined by the Council's Code of Conduct for Councillors? No. Notice under Section 106, Local Government Finance Act 1992, non-payment of community charge or council tax? No. Okay. And next, before we move on, I just wanted to say a couple of things, because obviously this is my first full council meeting. I just want to remind people, firstly, that we are here to talk about rugby as a borough and not to go off on tangents about the rest of the country or different areas. Secondly, that we must all be civil. So there's nothing wrong with differing opinions, debates, open debates, but as I say, we must remain civil to each other. And if I have to, I will remind people of this at the start of meetings and again if necessary. But as I say, let's all talk about rugby because that's what we're here for, and let's be civil to each other. Yeah. So I now move on to motion on notice. So set out at item 4 of the agenda is a motion received concerning the office of Leader of the Council. Councillor Moran, will you move the motion set out at item 4 of the agenda?
I will, Mr. Mayor.
Who will second the motion?
I will, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
I call on Councillor Moran to speak on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to echo your opening thoughts as well. It's not personal, but the intention, as the motion says, is to remove the leader for a change in political leadership. The election results in May were clear, with approximately 16,000 votes for either Labour or the Liberal Democrat manifesto, a figure representing some 60% of the total votes cast. The opening sentence of the Labour manifesto stated a need for a progressive vision for change. The Liberal Democrat manifesto was called a manifesto for change. After decades of Conservative rule in rugby, it's time for a fresh start and a new approach. Mr. Mayor, the motion isn't about dwelling in the past, but focusing on the future. So therefore, I believe it's my duty to put it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers?
Mr Mayor, is Councillor Mystery not going to second it?
I've already done that, Mr Mayor. I've already done that.
Yeah, you've already seconded.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Paul.
In that case, I'm here, my last meeting as leader of the council. I must say, I have led this council to the best of my ability for the last 12 months. I've led with dignity and I've led with pride. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Roodhouse.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to start by placing on record, which I think we should do, which is the work that Councillor Paul and Councillor Picker have done. And personally, my thanks to them, but also our group's thanks to them for the work that you've done, that you've picked up within that time. And you've done it to the best of your ability, as I said. And I think it's only right that we should show that respect to that. And I know as we move forward, things will look to change and we will move forward. And my colleague, Councillor Isabel Mackenzie, will be picking up some of those issues about what the future may look like and how that may handle as well during that particular process. But my thanks go to you both. I know how hard it's been and how hard you've worked, Derek, through issues privately and through the council as well. So thank you very much for what you've done.
Are there any other speakers? Councillor Picker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and if I might just take this opportunity to welcome you to your post, and thank you. Thank you, Councillor Roodhouse, for those comments. I think reflecting on my year and Councillor Paul's year as leadership of the council, it is a tough seat to sit in. We all want to do what is best for our residents, and I think we all actually agree on a lot of those issues. And over the past year, we've tried to set up a number of cross-party working groups to look at some of those long-term strategic aspirations. It's my hope that the new administration will continue that work on a cross-party basis, and if they do, we will continue to engage. But we do remain the largest party in this organisation, and we will seek to represent the residents of Rugby to the best of our ability on all matters. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Any more speakers before we move on? Yeah. Councillor Mystery.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Derek and I go back, Councillor Paul, long time, and I think what we say in this chamber, in whatever form, you can never debate, whatever, but I've always said, and I can remember Councillor Collett, when you leave that door, you leave that, whatever you do in this chamber, and we should be what you just echoed, that we should be what we are, friends and whatever need to do. And I want to put on record, Derek knows very well that, you know, that he's a gentleman, and it's very not often you see somebody of his caliber in the chamber, and I think we need to go back to that thing. And I was just echoing to Councillor Roodhouse, they've become the father of the chamber now, you know, for long service. So we need to set that example with a Zimmer frame. But anyway, Derek, Councillor Picker, put on record, you know, thanks to what you all done, you know, and hope we continue to work in partnership. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, if I may, can I just say thank you very much to Councillor Mystery and Councillor Roodhouse for those lovely comments. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no more speakers, Councillor Moran, right to reply.
Thank you. I'll talk in a bit more depth, but again, to place on record, I feel that the situation we all found ourselves in 12 months ago wasn't quite by anyone's design. So, again, as I said, 12 months ago, I think when Councillor Seb Lowe was no longer with us, anybody that puts himself forward for public service is to be commended, so thank you.
I shall now put the motion to the vote.
Mr Mayor, can I call for a recorded vote, please?
Do we have two more people that would like to also have a recorded vote?
I will second that, Mr Mayor.
I will, Mr Mayor.
Okay, that's 3 people. So I'll hand over to the Chief Exec.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll now call out the councillors' names. Could you please indicate whether you are voting for, against or abstaining from this motion? Barnett. Bennett. Brown.
For.
Dumbleton. Claire Edwards. Sam Edwards. Freeman. Garcia. Gillias. Harrington. Hassel. Henderson. Howling. Dale Keeling. John Keeling.
Against.
Lawrence. Lewis. Livesey.
For.
Maudis. Mackenzie. Mystery. Moran. New. Picker. Paul. Robinson. Roodhouse. Russell. Sanderson. Sayani. Simpson Vince. Slinger. Srivastava. Thomas. Timms.
One of our members wasn't called.
Trimble. Ward.
Against.
Willis.
Okay, the results are 23 for the motion and 15 against, which means the motion is carried. And the motion is carried, and I can confirm that Councillor Derek Poole has been formally removed from his position as leader of this council. This now gives rise to a vacancy for leader of this council, and I will now seek nominations. Councillor Mystery.
Mr Mayor, I move Councillor Michael Moran to be the leader of the Rugby Brough Council.
Do I have a seconder for that?
Mr Mayor, I will second the motion and reserve my right to speak.
Are there any other nominations? So just to add this bit as well, so all nominations require a proposer and a seconder. Just once nominations are put forward, which we've just had, I'll then call on any speakers, and will then be a vote for the nominees. The vote for the nominees will only call on votes in favour of the nomination. The nominee with the majority of votes will be elected as leader. As I say, we've already had the nomination. So Councillor Mystery, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, it gives me great pleasure to move Councillor Michael Moran as the leader of the council. I've known Councillor Moran for many years and have worked very closely over the past 12 years and lately as his deputy leader. Within the group and as a leader of the Labour group, he has always been led from the front and is not afraid to challenge the norm. He brings wealth of experience working with the local councils in his daytime job over the past 20 years. We need a fresh start and a new leadership with the new ideas and for someone to think outside the box. He is that person. Some of you know my working background and my lifelong working as a trade union officer for a large company in this town for over 45 years. We are both aligned and are on the same page that all our town hall employees are treated as a great asset to the organisation and not as a liability. I'm sure Councillor Moran will talk about the topic in his speech. Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Councillor Slinger, do you wish to speak? Are there any other speakers? Councillor Mackenzie?
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to say a few words, and I actually wanted to say a few words because I understand quite a lot of the staff might be listening tonight. And I just wanted to say a few words of reassurance. With every change, there comes uncertainty, and I understand that this is a very uncertain time for people, wondering what we're going to do, how the new administration is going to work. And first of all, I wanted to reassure them we intend to work productively and positively with staff at all levels. We've created the post of staff champion so that you have someone you can talk to, and my colleague Carrie-Anne will be carrying out that role. As you are all aware, the council is painfully understaffed and has far too many vacancies. It's put enormous pressure on everyone in post, so I thank you for the work that you're already doing. We wish to build on the excellent work you did with the Can-Do blueprint. You aspire to be more responsive to customers and be the best, and we aspire to that too. We wish to see a clearer focus within the organisation, better lines of communication between departments, reduction in red tape with clearer and more devolved authority throughout the council to actually set you free from painfully slow decision-making. We want a customer charter to make sure the whole organisation is working in a joined-up way. We intend this to make your working lives better, not worse. There will be changes in how you work and where exactly you report within the council, but hopefully you will agree that less red tape, more decision-making authority and clear collaboration will make everyone's job more rewarding and better. Our world has changed immeasurably over the last few years, made worse by austerity, which has put more pressure on our budget, whilst the government has piled on responsibilities. So we cannot stay the same. We have to change. So my question back to staff is this. If there was one thing you could change which would make your job better or easier or quicker, what would it be? If we implemented hundreds of tiny changes suggested by staff at all levels, what would we look like in 12 months or 2 years? That is much of the change I wish to see, driven by you, incremental improvements to make our working lives better and our customer experience better. We can do this together. Thank you.
Are there any more speakers? Okay. In that case, I shall now put the nomination for Councillor Moran to the vote. Those in favour, please show. I declare that Councillor Moran is elected leader of the council. Councillor Moran, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you sincerely, everybody. By some margin, it's the hardest words I've ever had to try and put together. So please bear with me. And equally, to follow the words of Councillor Mackenzie isn't easy as well. It goes without saying I'm honoured, I'm humbled, I'm excited at the prospect of leading Rugby Brough Council. And really, this whole thing starts with the work that was put into developing our manifesto in the local elections. the idea, the drive, the need, the desire to see rugby do better, to be greener and to be fairer. And I think it's important to recognise that those sentiments, that vision resonated with voters. We got the most votes despite only campaigning in 10 of 14 seats. So those overarching aims are going to be our focus: a better council, a greener council, a fairer council. But that's going to be the last dimension of votes, of elections, and to some surprise, partisan politics. I'm new to politics, clearly, and it may surprise you to believe that I have huge disdain for this kind of squabbling. I sat last night, as many of you did, I'm sure, to watch the leadership debates, ignoring politics completely, because I've said I'm going to ignore that type of politics. It was an unedifying spectacle, shouting and talking over each other. There wasn't really an exchange of ideas. So that, to me, hit home that, to some extent, examples are best made at a local level, I think. And equally, as many of you have clearly been out on the streets the last couple of weeks and months in talking to residents and businesses, they really don't care what happens in here in terms of squabbling, and it's all off-putting. And so I'm not going to spend a moment talking about the previous administration or administrations. It's irrelevant. We've got to have a clean slate. I'm equally taking on one of those old adages that a week is a long time in politics. Well, 2 years is a longer time in politics. So hopefully there is an opportunity to roll up our sleeves and work collaboratively for the good of residents. And Councillor Poole, you know, on a personal level, I've said to you many times, I hold you in huge and high esteem. They are very big shoes to try and fill, and I'll do my best. But I think equally the idea for change is positive. It can be positive. And Councillor Mackenzie, you absolutely stole my thunder, because in our manifesto, a greener, fairer and better, we identified what we thought were 2 building blocks, and that was the workforce and that was finances. And very, very conscious, in an organisation, a living, breathing organisation of hundreds of employees, when you talk about change and structural change, of course it's terrifying. These are people's jobs, their livelihoods, their careers. So I want to address that now second in the chamber. So what I want to say is that categorically, there's not a drive here to cut costs or to slash jobs or anything like that. Without indulging management speak for a second, that idea of a results-orientated council, I think we need to align better with the outcome. So there will be a change, working with HR, working with unions, etc., to try and make that alignment, that change. But when we talk about growth and investment in rugby, we've got to start here in the town hall. The council's greatest asset is its staff, without a doubt. And so that idea of empowering individuals to enjoy their job more, to address issues of recruitment, of retention, of morale, those are things that we can do positively from day one, and that absolutely is the intention. And I think I always, when I'm struggling for words, kind of try and bring sort of football or sporting analogies, so just bear with me. But I think here, I kind of typify rugby as kind of this small lower league football club. That's not a bad thing. It's got a name, it's got a heritage, but realistically, in the context of big unitary authorities and mayoralties and all that sort of thing, we're a small entity. But small can be beautiful. And there's nothing to say that rugby cannot be the best district council in the country. And equally for careers, for individuals, that's not to say that there should be any reticence about training and empowering individuals to get better. And if that means that staff go off to pastures new, then that's positive, that's healthy. But that investment in staff is going to be key. So that's item number 1 on the agenda. And equally, finances, clearly. You can have the greatest plan, the greatest staff, but if we've got money issues, then that's a concern. I hope it's not challenging to say that we have precarious financial circumstances for the council. Strategically, the council's budget of 21 million, we've got a material multi-million-pound in-year deficit. And there is clearly currently no reliance on business rates to fill that gap. As I said at length in February's speech on the budgets, that clearly needs addressing, and that's going to be a challenge. And And so to deal with that on day one, hopefully, literally day one, the idea very much is to bring in outside expertise. And I want to be really clear again, the gentleman's virtually in front of me. John Illingworth, you've been fantastic since taking over his leadership a year ago. And in no way is this a slight on you or your team. But such is the nature of the challenges that we face. We want to bring in the best ideas from around the country and look at different ways of doing things that might give us a better chance to deliver financially for all of our ambitions. So that very much starts on day one. Again, as we touched on, through those early discussions with the Liberal Democrats, I'm actually delighted to share that to add those early priorities to those building blocks of staff and finances of a greener, better, fairer outcome, those early priorities. And Councillor Mackenzie, again, we should have liaised here. Again, the code of conduct, the customer charter, those things can make a massive difference inside and outside the town hall. And again, it's not my time or place to go into the detail of that. But I think what I will use this opportunity is that, again, many people in this chamber would have taken part in the code of conduct training a couple of weeks ago. And again, our legal and monitoring officer was at pains to point out that to some extent statute has a limit for what can be achieved. And so again, I'd like to call on Councillor Poole and Councillor Roothouse that we might sit down and actually look to see what can we do from a political basis, from a personal basis, to perhaps go further than statute allows, so that we get that code of conduct to really have teeth for the benefit of all. Because I think there's got to be this idea of not under my watch. And I think when councillors in other jurisdictions come out and say things that really are beyond the pale, you know, it is incumbent on leaders to remove them from their posts in whatever way is possible. A further new initiative that wasn't quite touched on, I love it, the Rugby Partnership Board, drawing together the NHS, drawing together police, Warwickshire County Council and volunteers into one entity to deliver more for residents and businesses. Again, there'll be a time, it's something we spoke about at length, but I'm delighted to give credit where credit is due. On the greener theme, I think it's so important that we can do as we say. No ifs, no buts, no delays. And I think the idea that we want to be really unashamedly proud of is working like magpies. That if there is a green environmental policy in Newcastle or Norwich or wherever, then we'll steal it. And we'll acknowledge that we're stealing it. Because that climate change, if you genuinely believe it's an emergency, then time has to come now to make that change. So a green blueprint, if you excuse the pun, will be a cornerstone of any administration. And just lastly, in terms of that fairer strand, and again, I want to work so much on inequality in the borough. And I know in February, I spoke at length about child poverty. And I think where we looked at a community supermarket, it's the tip of an iceberg. So I think there's going to be an idea coming forward about kind of this anti-poverty alliance to really identify where there are issues with child poverty and what can be done. But again, before others may get a chance to point out, there's many other areas of inequality. Well, let's identify them, let's report on them, let's work on them. Because I think only by really highlighting those issues can a solution come forward. And there should be a position where nobody in this borough is ignored. Finally, in terms of my personal focus, I will be on regenerating the town centre. And again, as somebody who spent their lifetime in property, it's and sometimes I could keep defending myself to friends, but it's about property is more than bricks and mortar. And in Rugby, we're lucky that we've got a town that has a cultural heart. And I think, but more than that, again, as a father of teenage and now post-teenage children, it's that idea that you want a sense of pride of where people come from. And figuratively and visually, the town centre becomes that issue. So under no illusions that it's going to be an easy walk in the park to deliver the change that's needed in Rugby. The number of businesses that are unhappy is clearly unprecedented. But we'll get into the detail of town centre plans at another time. But I think we're really positive about telling businesses, about listening to them, about activating, delivering change to bricks and mortar. But again, something that we spoke about previously, Our idea for a Love Rugby concept to activate, to energise the borough, I think that's going to be really, really important. And equally, I want to touch on that theme again that was outlined about a code of behaviour, about a code of conduct. And I am very conscious of my duty to lead by example on that. So I will do that, and I will take pride in trying to exemplify and practice what I preach. Councillor Poole, again, I remember last year you were very clear in the style of leadership about being open and transparent, and that's all I can ever try and mimic. But I think for me personally, I think what I want to kind of do is that my frustration in the past, to be candid, has been about what I would term the lack of detail of strategic plans, or a lack of options and appraisals and that sort of thing. So I'm clearly now incumbent on me to practice what I preach and to put forward that. And then, for me, that's the opportunity then to make that positive difference to people's lives. But to give an insight, my thought process is really clear. Whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 5, 10 or 20, I'm joking, there will be a time when that baton is passed on. But so all I can possibly do is look at, to be comfortable that we've done that betterment inside and outside the town hall about how that council functions. So that's what I'm going to try and achieve as best I can. Because it's not just about setting that ambitious agenda. And I'm genuinely excited about what's achievable in terms of a local plan, in terms of the town centre, in really putting those actions onto the table in terms of a green initiative to make the town more environmentally friendly. It's not about just being ambitious. There's going to be an instance, I think, of instilling a degree of confidence in the town, in the borough, in the town hall, to say no sometimes to developers. I think there's been a reticence sometimes to be a bit more bullish. Now, again, I take it that at times it's got to be backed up by policy. But again, it would be rather funny to have the idea that I'm against development, but I'm against bad development. And I think whether that's protecting a hedgerow or trying to get more of a Section 106 package, I think there could be a culture where we do ask for more and we could achieve more. So I hope as we go on in this municipal year, there will be a noticeable and a tangible difference in how the administration performs. Look, so to summarise, I've spoken about building blocks of really putting the workforce first, centremost in our thoughts, trying to get a handle of finances so that strategically we can deliver the change that's needed. I want to talk again at length, we'll go into in the different meetings about what we mean by a better rugby or a greener or a fairer rugby. So I guess to close, there's a huge amount to achieve, there's a huge amount to go forward. But there's clearly a great opportunity. Rugby has these great fundamentals. So to be really honest, I've not got a doubt that we can achieve those ambitions economically and financially and in terms of bricks and mortar. All of those are achievable. But for me personally, the most important measure or the most important element will be that inequality gap. Because I think as the town, as the borough goes forward, I want us to focus on the weakest, the poorest in society. And that's not in any way to get into some sort of weird political debate about sort of holding people back and restraining opportunities. Rugby has huge opportunities, full stop. What I want to ensure is that along that journey, those weakest, the quietest voices are not ignored. So with that, I'm delighted and honoured, as I said, to take on this responsibility. And thank you very much for your votes of confidence. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we now move on. So the next item of business is to receive the report of the Chief Officer for Legal and Governance concerning appointments to committees for the 2024-25 municipal year, which has been circulated separately to all members. I move the adoption of the report. Who will second the motion?
I will, Mr. Mayor.
I shall now put the motion to the meeting. I would remind you that if there is any dissent, the motion cannot be adopted. Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. The motion is carried without dissent. So, meetings of committees to appoint chairs and vice chairs will now take place. Please could members of each committee stand when called to do so. I call upon all members of the Scrutiny Committee to stand. Is there a nomination for Chair of the Scrutiny Committee?
Mr Mayor, I propose Councillor Mrs Timms as Chair of Scrutiny.
Is there a seconder for this nomination? Are there any further nominations? All those in favour of Councillor Timms, please show. I declare that Councillor Timms is elected the Chair of the Scrutiny Committee. Councillor Timms will now seek for a Vice Chair of the committee. That's Councillor Lawrence elected as the Vice Chair. Sorry, all those in favour. Sorry, thank you. Sorry, yeah. Thank you, Councillor Timms. I stand corrected on that one. Yeah. I call upon all members of the Licensing and Safety Committee to stand. Is there a nomination for Chair of the Licensing and Safety Committee? Is there a seconder for that?
I second the motion, Mr Mayor.
Are there any other nominations? I confirm that, sorry, please, I'll put that to the vote. Yeah, sorry, yeah. We're getting there, sorry. Yeah, can I put that to the vote? All those in favour? Okay. That's Councillor Garcia, elected as the Chair of the Licensing and Safety Committee. And I now hand over to you for a Vice Chair.
Councillor Keeling. Dale Keeling. Thank you. Could I ask for a seconder for that, please?
I second the motion, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Any other nominations? All those in favour? Is that me? All those in favour then? Good start, eh? Thank you. So I'll confirm that Dale Keeling is now Councillor Dale Keeling is now the Vice Chair, and that concludes our business. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I now call upon all members of the Planning Committee to stand. Is there a nomination for Chair of the Planning Committee?
Mr Mayor, I nominate Councillor Gillias as the Chair of Planning.
Is there a seconder for this nomination? Are there any further nominations? All those in favour of Councillor Gillias as Chair of Planning Committee, please show. All those against? I declare that Councillor Gillias is the Chair of Planning Committee. I now hand over to Councillor Gillias.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. That's great. Any nominations for Vice Chair of the Planning Committee?
I propose Councillor Neil Sanderson as the Vice Chair.
Thank you. Any a seconder? Yes, I'm second. Thank you. Any further nominations? Okay. All those in favour of Councillor Sanderson as the Vice Chair, please show. Thank you all very much. Well done, Councillor Sanderson. And that concludes the business of the Planning Committee. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gillias. So just before we close, I'm just going to mention a couple, because we haven't had mayoral announcements, there is a couple of announcements that I would like to say before we close. So firstly, tomorrow evening, I hope you're all going to join us over in Hill Morton at the War Memorial for the D-Day service arranged by the Royal British Legion in conjunction with RBC. It starts around 8:45 and people are welcome to bring their own tea lights, which they can place on the memorial. Myself and Barbara, Councillor Brown, will be lighting the beacon at 9:15, and there's also entertainment back at the ex-servicemen's club after the service. So as I say, it'd be lovely to see you all there. Another thing I was going to promote is the Art at the Alex, the Warwickshire Open Studios. I'll just hold this up for you. So this is 27th of June to the 7th of July. We're blessed that we have such a diverse range of artists and makers in the borough. So do go along and show your support. It's open, I think they're open Thursday evenings and Friday, Saturday and Sunday, but I've got some of these copies of these brochures if anybody would like a copy. Please just see me afterwards. I've got a few here. Then I'm also going to remind you again about the RJ Festival Fun Day, because obviously that's my chosen charity. So the 22nd of June at Newbold Rugby Club. Again, it'd be great to see you all down there to show your support for such an important charity. And one other thing that I am going to mention briefly is I met an inspirational lady yesterday called Liz Ballantyne at a rail safety event. Now, her 11-year-old son, Harrison, he tragically lost his life after going onto the railway line at Crick in 2017. Now, have a look at Harrison's story and Rail Safe Friendly. It's on the mayoral page, so do follow the mayoral page. The links are on there. There's a YouTube video of Harrison's story, which is quite... I think it's been the most successful story to date in terms of like Network Rail and that, in promoting about children staying off the railway lines. So as I say, do have a look at that. It's really important about educating children in schools. There's a big campaign. And other than that, I'll stop there, because if I talk about all the engagements over the first couple of weeks, we could be here all night. So thank you for that. And other than that, just to say that concludes all items of business. Thank you for your attendance.